Warning! I spoil the entire movie It Comes at Night in this review. It is a very good movie in my opinion, and you should definitely watch it before watching this video. If you have not seen It Comes at Night,
please leave.
Now that everyone who hasn't seen It Comes at Night is gone, we can talk about what happens in the movie. The movie starts with the worst Father's Day surprise I've ever seen.
I love you, Dad.
Dang, Mom, did you have to pick today to make smoked barbecue for dinner? Don't worry, Stanley, I won't let the dog always dies in a horror movie trope get you. Honey, I know there's a plague that's killing everyone right now. Let's hang this painting of death and suffering on the wall by the pictures of our smiling, still alive family. It was 30% off at Goodwill. Wow, a jump scare that's actually kind of unnerving. Now you know for sure you're not watching a Blumhouse horror movie. So then everyone wakes up and Paul goes out to find a guy who kind of looks like a dirty, stinky, smelly Shia LaBeouf. Wait, that kind of sounds redundant. Paul goes out to find a guy who looks like Shia LaBeouf. I hope this knocks you out and doesn't just hurt really, really bad and make you go, "Oh, fuck!" Finally, some proper father-son bonding. Teaching your kid how to tape a stranger to a tree.
You know what a 1.5 feet is? Sorry. It's about that long. Sorry. That's all right. Do it again.
Wait, so he breaks in at night, and then they tie him to the tree in the morning, and then it's night again, and then it's morning again? Did they have this guy tied up to the tree for 24 hours? This doesn't seem like a good spot for a glory hole. So Paul interrogates the stranger, and he says he was just trying to provide for his family and thought the house was abandoned, and oh, by the way, I have food. What kind of food do you have? I've got chickens. I can teach you how to make a KFC double down. That sounds pretty good. Do you have goats? Yeah. Here, drink my purified Waterworld piss. They drive around, and some people try to kill them, so they try to kill them back and are successful at killing them back, and they look like father and son. This is just a bummer of a Father's Day weekend, huh? Some time passes and Daddy's home! Andy brought KFC, some goats, and a strange family. In this scene, Travis has a boner while his dad talks about shitting in a bucket.
And at nighttime, we use buckets and empty them. We can talk about it another time.
Is it just me, or does this kid kind of look like a young Carl Pilkington?
Ow! Tara just bit my toe. Son of a bitch. Tell him to stop biting my toe.
But why wasn't the dinosaurs back then just like how we have dogs now?
Maybe you could get in the bath.
Do I smell? Yeah, the subtle hints you drop. Jesus Christ almighty. You don't smell great yourself. It's like French onion soup.
Travis finds the couple's soupy sexual onion foreplay so funny he spits. In this scene, Will talks about shitting while Travis has wood to chop. So then there's a montage of the families living together, and Sarah shows Kim how to boil their dirty piss with a Waterworld contraption. They don't show the contraption that makes KFC double downs, but I know it's somewhere. I think this is a weird time for a baptism. What do you think, young Carl?
Like I've said, you know, jellyfish and what have you. It's 97% water or something. So how much are they doing? Just give them another 3%, make them water.
Ha ha ha, Chinese checkers. This is a sweet scene. Oh, you dick, you didn't let her put the bookmark in first! So then Travis gets a boner after dreaming that Kim spits blood in his mouth. So then Travis goes down to the kitchen and there's like this sexually charged tea party scene with Kim. And then he says something that makes me no longer relate to his character.
I don't like cupcakes, cookies, ice cream.
So the next day, Travis has a boner and watches Kim pump water, wishing his boner was the pump. Then the dog starts barking and runs away.
The dog days are over. The dog days are done.
I call this the Paul fall.
What the hell are you thinking?
In order to cope with his lost dog, Travis draws something that looks like a cross between Slender Man and the aliens from Majora's Mask. Then Paul talks to Will.
Well, thank you for the chickens.
Who knew 540 calories could taste so refreshing? Paul tells Will what he used to do.
I, was a teacher.
Oh, yeah?
History.
Get out of here.
Yeah, you want to know all about the Roman Empire? I'm your guy.
But did you let your students watch Saving Private Ryan? Because if not, you're not as cool as my junior year history teacher, Mr. Scott. Paul gets suspicious of Will, so he takes away the whiskey. Huh? Young Carl is asleep on the floor. Bit weird, innit? Travis finds the red door open, and there's a loud noise, and everyone wakes up, and the dog days are officially over now. One of the things I love about this movie is how it never tells you who's supposed to be the bad guy.
Do you want me to be the bad guy? I will be the bad guy. You're not going in the room.
Except for that time. Oh hey, it's the conversation from the teaser trailer. Travis suggests young Carl might have opened the door, so he gets interrogated.
Is that your baby?
I can't remember.
Did you see Stanley last night?
I can't remember.
Andrew, think real hard and tell Mommy what you remember.
Does the brain control you, or are you controlling the brain?
What?
That night, Travis has a dream where he sees something horrifying that we don't see. Insert childhood-ruining Rule 34 image here. Oh no, Travis is sick. But wait, it's actually a dream within a dream. Phew, thank God I'm white again. Travis goes to the attic and finds out the other family's planning on leaving, so he tells on them. Paul goes to check things out, and Will's got a gun. Will's like, take the mask off. And Paul's like, And Will's like, please. And Paul's like, okay. So they try to leave, but then Paul gets the gun, and then Will gets the gun, and then Paul gets the gun, and some horrific violence occurs, and Travis definitely does not have a boner in this scene, I hope. And oh no, Travis is sick. But wait, it's actually a dream. Oh wait, it's not a dream. Oh. It Comes at Night was received with kinda mixed reviews. Critics loved it overall, but general audiences seemed less receptive. A large part of that could be attributed to the mismarketing of the trailer, which effectively sold it as a monster movie. The movie's title also conjures up the idea of a monster or supernatural entity. This led to plenty of online reviews saying nothing comes at night, and this movie is boring. And Lovely Latte says, worst movie ever. Really, of all the movies on the entire planet Earth, this one is the worst one. Really. But I can see how this movie is very frustrating for a lot of people. After all, it does leave a shit ton of unanswered questions. Questions like, what is the dog barking at? What killed the dog? Why did whatever killed the dog bring the dog back to the house and then leave? Are all the dreams really dreams? What the fuck are you looking at? What are you drawing? Is the kid really sick? What makes people sick? Why were those guys shooting them? Where is everyone else on the world? Why does Travis have a white daddy? How long has this sickness been going on? But many of these unanswered questions are in the film's advantage. The lack of information given to the characters is a lack of information given to the audience, which makes the viewer as suspicious and paranoid as our characters. As I mentioned earlier, no one is set up to be the hero in this film. The story is obviously set around Travis and his family, so we're meant to sympathize with them more than Will's family. But Paul's rough and grizzled demeanor and his premature conclusions make him more of an anti-hero. And that's really smart, because that, combined with the unflinching, dark nature of the movie, make the last 10 minutes give me some of the most edge-of-my-seat thrills I've ever experienced. I genuinely didn't know who was going to live or die. I cared about Paul and his family, and up until this point, I thought Will and his family were decent people as well. Everyone seemed like real, believable people. Hell, even the dog seemed more believable than most movie dogs. It looks old, like it's about to die in real life.
Oh, this was hard to look at. I didn't see it in real time.
Oh, dude, I just remembered Mikey passed away.
No.
He passed away like 5 days ago. He got lung cancer. So, we don't have Mikey anymore.
It just adds to the realism. The actors didn't have big Hollywood monologues or quippy one-liners because that would have deflated all the tension. They talk like any person you'd meet at a bar or a 7-Eleven. Their delivery is almost improv-like and it feels natural, like the cameras aren't even rolling. But it also doesn't cross the line into mumblecore hipster garbage. Everything serves a purpose. Some people have asked what's the point of this sexually charged invisible cupcake scene with Travis and Kim. It's simple, really. It's a scene to make you feel how Travis feels. He's starting to like these guests, but he still feels a bit uncomfortable about it.
I should just probably go to bed.
Really, I think Travis is the window of this movie. We're supposed to experience the movie the way he does. He's scared, naive, curious, maybe a little horny. Plus, the only nightmare sequences we see are Travis's. But none of what the character feels matters if it isn't properly conveyed. The tone of the movie hinges on the actor's performance, and especially his facial expressions. And thankfully, in my opinion, he fucking nailed it. Let's take a look.
Go, take him to the living room. I'm very sorry, Travis. Go, please, please.
Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Kelvin Harrison Jr. really gives Joel Edgerton a run for his money in this movie. This might be one of the most convincing expressions of fear I've seen in any movie, and that's part of what makes this one of the most chilling scenes I've ever seen in a horror movie. But nothing is actually shown, so therefore nothing happens and the movie is boring! I'm a huge advocate for less is more in horror movies. Subtlety and atmosphere are much more important than bloody death scenes and big monsters. I can't tell you how many horror movies went from scary to stupid because they revealed the monster in the third act and it looked fake and dumb. Never underestimate the power of the imagination. In this scene, I might imagine a big lizard creature, while you might imagine a Bill Murray-looking creature. Now, when I said lizard creature, what did you think of? There, now that I've shown you what it is, it's less scary. Now, what did you think of when I said Bill Murray creature? See, I got you again. The point is, our imagination is a lot scarier than what the movie could ever show us. Unless your movie is The Thing, but I'll talk more on that later. By only showing us the character's reaction to a monster, it makes it more haunting, and does what every horror movie should try to do. Linger with you after the credits roll. And honestly, I'm surprised how many reviews said this wasn't scary. I can perfectly understand why people were left unsatisfied or angry because of unanswered questions, but I have to wonder what people find scary if this scene doesn't at least creep you out a little bit. And sure, it's fine if nothing scares you, but then why are you complaining about it not being scary? If you don't easily get scared, then why would you deduct points from a movie for not making you feel what is impossible for you to feel? I don't know, it just seems counterproductive. But I have a theory for why people were bored by this movie, and I think it all comes down to how active your imagination is. I don't claim to know anything about the human brain, but I think some people just have more boring thoughts than others. So if the movie asks you to imagine something scary and your thoughts are generally like this, then the movie's not going to creep you out. I'm also writing this under the assumption that people were actually looking at the screen the whole time and watching subtle facial expressions, but a lot of young people watching this at home were probably on their phones. This would explain why the Redbox reviews were so much lower than IMDb. Get off Snapchat! I honestly think people with a more creative mind are going to enjoy this a lot more. I know I sound a little pretentious saying this movie is for a creative mind. I'm just saying this movie's not for everyone, and that's just my guess as to why. Now, I'm not saying every horror movie should never show you anything, but that is what makes this movie so refreshing. What would classics like Alien, Jaws, and The Thing be without their practical effects? Actually, Jaws would still be scary if you only saw the fin the whole movie. Jaws is great, but that shark today looks a little bit... Anyway, I bring up The Thing specifically because that feels like the biggest influence to this movie, down to the similar appearances between the lead actors. Oh yeah, I guess Joel Edgerton was in The Thing prequel too. Oh, whatever. It's especially interesting because The Thing was very much an effects-driven horror movie. They showed the shit out of those practical effects. And they are creepy, yes, but arguably the scariest moments in The Thing are when you don't know what's going to happen or who's infected. Paranoia and fear of the unknown. The same driving forces of It Comes at Night. However, It Comes at Night does it completely stripped down. No effects, just strong direction and performances. I'm certainly not saying this movie is more impressive than The Thing for not using effects, because, come on, you can't really do anything in a horror movie that's more impressive than this.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
But it is very impressive nonetheless how It Comes at Night creates a tangible sense of dread and tension without all the spectacle. Think of it as an acoustic performance of The Thing. Okay, so I know I spent a lot of time praising this one scene for being so scary, and you're probably yelling at me, but this was just a dream sequence, so what does it matter? Well, a couple of things. First, this might have happened while Travis was still awake. I'll talk more on that in a minute. Second, even if this is just a dream sequence, it still effectively captures the isolating terror a nightmare can have on a person. Not everything scary needs to be integral to the plot. It just needs to add to the tone. There are some other scenes where Travis is waking up from a nightmare and there's some interesting editing, like when Travis sees Black-Eyed Will, then wakes up, and then there's another few seconds of Black-Eyed Will shown. Or when Travis wakes up after the dream where he has sores on his arms and they're still there for a few seconds. That's really cool to me because I've woken up from nightmares and for a few seconds I still see the scary image in my mind and I'm not sure if I'm still dreaming. And I've never seen a movie try to replicate that and pull it off so well. Okay, I'm going to talk about my fan theory that this scene might have actually happened in real life, but first let me talk about the director. This is Trey Edward Schultz. He is the filmmaker. Even though he looks more like a PE teacher or a chef, he directs movies. But it's like they say, don't judge a movie by its very misleading trailer. There's not too much I have to say about him for the sake of this review, but one important thing to note is how he chose to use aspect ratio. Most of the movie is in 2.4:1, but the dream sequences transition to 2.75:1. However, the end of the movie tightens all the way up to 3:1 when reality now is a nightmare. It's meant to feel claustrophobic. It's fascinating to me because who's to say that other nightmare scenes couldn't also be real-life nightmares? I guess the director could say that, but any good artist should leave their work up to interpretation for their audience. You know, unless you're Ridley Scott and you want to ruin your own movie by adding unicorns! But okay, so this sequence takes place after the dog dies, but the dog is barking in this scene, so obviously it's a dream. Well, yeah, I do think he's dreaming, but he might be dreaming about something that happened earlier. Let's go back to one of the biggest questions the movie presents. Who opened the red door? I don't think there's ghosts in this movie, and the door locks from the inside, so it was probably someone in the house. Kim says Andrew is too short to reach the lock and he doesn't sleepwalk, but maybe she's full of shit. Travis might also sleepwalk, which would mean he could open the door and not remember. So he might have wandered outside, seen Stanley get killed, and came back home leaving the door open. And I guess whatever he saw didn't fully process because he wasn't completely conscious. But I'm not a brain expert. This also means it's perfectly possible the first dream sequence where Travis finds Bud sitting on the side of the bed could have played out similarly to this, and he's just dreaming about what actually happened. I don't know, I'm just having fun piecing together the puzzle of whether or not there's a bigger threat out there. I find it fascinating how two people can watch this movie and one might come out of it thinking there are monsters in this universe, while the other would say, huh? What do you mean monsters? There are no monsters in this movie. It's like if the Blair Witch Project never mentioned a witch through any dialogue and only vaguely suggested there might be a witch through events that happen. And the only thing face value was that 3 people in the woods lose their minds and die. But a lot of people also hated the Blair Witch Project and said nothing happened in that movie. I don't know, I guess I find movies where the characters look and sound genuinely terrified to be scary even if we don't see what they see. To me, the question of whether or not there's a monster in It Comes at Night is obvious. I don't know. And that's the best answer I could ask for. That ambiguity gives the movie a unique kind of creepiness I rarely experience. It Comes at Night does hint towards some kind of monster a few times in the movie, besides the obvious one. When Stanley runs off, you can hear a couple of big, heavy footsteps after his barking stops. Then that night, Travis is drawing some kind of monster amongst the trees. When Stanley is brought back, keyword being brought, there are long trails of blood like he was dragged or slid into the room. Also, there's a loud sound when he arrived, like some tools fell over. I just find it hard to believe that the dog would come crashing into the room in this condition and then just lay there and somehow leave a trail of blood like this. I mean, why wouldn't the dog just die in the woods where he was attacked? And why did something attack the dog? The sickness doesn't appear to be a zombie virus from what we've seen, and it's not like rabies and makes things more aggressive. It just makes things slowly die. So whatever did this to Stanley was already a large predator. He doesn't look like he's in any condition to walk here from who knows how many hundreds of feet away, even if he wanted to, so he could die with his family. Kind of looks like something had to carry him in here and then threw him in here and maybe ran off because it made a loud noise? Or maybe it's an intelligent creature and this was a warning. I do find it odd that Paul and Will don't mention how strange the trail of blood is, or that Stanley was in no condition to limp here from upwards of half a mile away, but I don't know, maybe the director didn't want to suggest there's a monster any more than he had to. But Paul does say this line.
We don't know what made Stanley sick. It could have been an animal, not a person, anything.
Kind of sounds like a line in a monster movie, similar to how in every Bigfoot horror movie someone has to say, "What could have done this? A bear?" Then there's this shot in the woods with some weird-looking figure, but it could just be a strange-shaped tree. Also the score. I haven't talked about the score yet. It's pretty good. Nothing too memorable, mostly ambient, but it's effective. There is an interesting sound to some of the music which sounds like a low growling noise, which kept me thinking of monsters throughout the movie. I'd also like to take this time to complain about how the two best songs in the movie, you know, this song and this one, aren't in the soundtrack. Stop holding back, Mylan Records! And of course I wanted to see the monster, but the last 10 minutes were so tense and cathartic that I didn't feel like the suspense created from these unanswered questions was wasted. The film could have gone in a lot of different directions after the who opened the door scene, and I was satisfied with this direction. Other options may have ended in showing a big monster and it could have killed the tension, plus it's not that unique. This movie not telling you whether or not there even is a monster and instead focusing on paranoia and human violence make it a more memorable experience in my opinion. The creepy parts of the movie stay creepy after it's over because you're left wondering. It's the reason I'm still obsessed with this movie over a year later, and I'm happy to say this movie is still just as effective upon later viewings. I've watched this 5 times now, including once with director commentary, and even knowing how the movie ends, the creepy scenes are still unsettling, and the last 10 minutes still make my heart race. Thanks to great performances of realistic characters and nice looking cinematography with skillfully paced shots, this is a horror thriller worth revisiting. So this movie's not for everyone, and maybe you disagree with every single point I made, and I don't think I'm going to convince someone who hated the movie to give it another chance. Really, I just wanted to give this movie the spotlight because everyone else was sucking Get Out's dick last year, and I thought this was a much better movie. Get Out was really good and well made, but I just thought it was too vanilla for a horror film. Ironic because it's about black people. But I also didn't find it scary. But I guess fear is subjective. That's one of the main points I've been making after all. Maybe Travis would watch Get Out and he'd make this face. Yo, From my limited point of view though, It Comes at Night was the better movie, so I'm choosing to suck its dick over Get Out's dick. But if you thought the movie was boring, that's okay. There are a lot of slow-paced things I find powerful emotion in that other people call boring and pointless. Now, I don't think the movie is perfect. Some of the earlier dream sequences are pretty lame and could have been a lot creepier. At the end, Sarah lets Will bash Paul's face in a few too many times before shooting him. It did prolong the tension, but it felt artificial because what reason does Sarah have to let this go on this long? But that's about it for my complaints. I love almost every creative decision that went into this film. It all made sense to me and served the greater whole. I even love the poster. It perfectly encapsulates the eeriness and mysterious tone of the film. So I ordered the poster off Amazon, but the package didn't arrive on time, so I called the postal service and they said, "Sorry, maybe your package was stolen." So I contacted the seller about the problem, and she sent me this message, which just repeats what I already told her about the situation, which doesn't help me at all, and it's the most useless response she could have given me, and didn't even answer my question, so I wasted $22. God damn it! Vicky! Anyway, those are all my thoughts on It Comes at Night, at least for now. There could always be new revelations that bubble up. Feel free to disagree with as much or as little of the review as you do. I just hope we can agree on one thing. This is better than shit like this.